I once believed I was living the American dream. A wife, a beautiful daughter, and a stable job that provided for them both. My name is inconsequential, a mere detail in a life that once felt complete and secure. For 8 years, I was married to Valentina, and together we had Iris, a girl with her mother's dark hair and my easy smile. Our life seemed to be a series of simple, perfect moments. I worked as an accountant, putting in 60-hour weeks to ensure the life we'd built remained untouched by financial worry. Valentina managed the home, a role we had mutually agreed upon, a silent pact of trust and contentment. Every evening, I would return home exhausted but fulfilled. I'd help with dinner, read Iris a bedtime story, and fall into a dreamless sleep, confident that I was doing everything a husband and father should. But somewhere, in the quiet spaces between one day and the next, a shift occurred. It was subtle at first, like a faint crack in a foundation, easy to ignore. The criticisms began as offhand remarks. I wasn't ambitious enough. Other men brought home more. I was too soft with Iris, too quick to give in to her whims. I dismissed them as the normal friction of a long-term relationship. I tried to convince myself that every marriage had its rough patches. Then the remarks grew sharper, more personal. If work stress made me quiet or withdrawn, she'd roll her eyes and say, "A real man wouldn't let his job get to him like that." If I chose a quiet evening with a book and Iris over one of her work parties, she'd mutter about having an anti-social husband. The most insidious part of it all was how her words began to seep into my own thoughts. I started to question my very essence. Was I not man enough? Was I failing my family? My heart, which had always been so full of love for my wife and daughter, began to feel like a liability. Any display of emotion was met with cold derision, a signal that my vulnerability was a weakness to be scorned. The ground began to crumble beneath me one Tuesday evening in March. For weeks Iris had been distant, her eyes darting nervously when I approached her. My hugs were met with stiff resistance, my invitations to play with a quiet retreat to her mother's side. It was a wound that festered in my heart, but I convinced myself it was just a phase, a natural part of growing up. That night, I came home to a hushed kitchen. Valentina and Iris were standing together, their heads bent in what looked like a secret huddle. When they saw me, their conversation died, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Iris looked at me, not with the innocent adoration I was used to, but with fear, a raw, unadulterated fear that made my blood run cold. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper as I knelt to her level. Iris looked at her mother, then back at me. Her small voice trembled as she spoke the words that would shatter my world. Mommy says you're not my real daddy." The words hit me like a physical blow, a force that knocked the wind from my lungs. I looked up at Valentina, waiting for her to laugh, to explain, to correct this awful mistake. But her face was a mask of cold indifference. "Valentina, what is she talking about? We need to talk." My voice was a desperate plea. "Iris, go to your room," Valentina said, her tone devoid of emotion. Once Iris was gone, the facade dropped. Valentina told me everything, a confession that was more of a condemnation. She had been having an affair for over 2 years with her personal trainer, a man named Marcus. But the affair was just the beginning of the horror. For months, she had been systematically poisoning our daughter's mind, chipping away at my relationship with her. She had told Iris that I wasn't her real father, that Marcus was. She had described me as weak and pathetic, contrasting me with the real strength of her new lover. "You want to know why I did it?" she said, her voice rising with a cruel satisfaction. "Because you are pathetic. You cry during movies. You let people walk all over you at work. You'd rather read books than fix things around the house. Iris deserves to know what real strength looks like, not the weak man you are." I felt the room spin. The man she described was me, and yet he wasn't. I was a man who provided for his family, who read bedtime stories, who was gentle and kind. But she had taken those traits and twisted them into something ugly. "But I am her real father. I was there when she was born. I've raised her for 5 years. My words were a stuttering attempt to cling to the truth. Biology doesn't make you a father, she snapped, her eyes burning with contempt. Being a man does, and you're not one. That night, I didn't sleep. Her words echoed in the darkness, a relentless torment. I replayed every memory, every subtle slight, every moment I had missed. I saw how she had been slowly, methodically, building a wall between me and my daughter. The pain was unbearable, but beneath it, a slow, cold anger began to harden into a resolve I had never felt before. I wasn't going to fight her with angry words or a bitter tirade. I was going to show Iris the truth. My strategy was simple. I would become the father I was always meant to be. Instead of coming home exhausted and withdrawn, I threw myself into every moment with Iris. I taught her how to ride a bike, not just with a gentle push, but with patient hours of running alongside her, my hand on her back until she found her balance. When she scraped her knee, I didn't just clean the wound. I sat with her, held her hand, and told her that it was okay to feel upset when we're hurt. I taught her that caring for others wasn't a weakness, but a profound act of strength. I started cooking dinner every night. I showed her how to mix dough for pizza, how to chop vegetables safely. We planted a small garden in the backyard, and I explained that growing something beautiful takes patience, consistency, and a gentle hand. Most importantly, I started talking to her about emotions. When she struggled with her homework, I didn't just tell her to push through it. I sat with her, acknowledged her frustration, and said, "It's okay to feel upset when things are hard. Let's figure this out together." Valentina noticed the changes, and she didn't like them. She tried to undermine me, her insults becoming more frequent and pointed. But something beautiful was happening in the silence of our home. Iris was watching. She was learning to distinguish between words and actions. She was seeing that true strength wasn't a show of force, but an act of kindness. One evening, about 3 months after the night my world fell apart, Iris came to me with tears in her eyes. "Daddy," she whispered. The word hit me like a physical blow, a healing balm on a fresh wound, as she hadn't called me that in weeks. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Mommy says you're not strong, but you helped me when I was scared of the dark. And you taught me how to tie my shoes even when I got angry and threw them. And when Mommy yells, you don't yell back. You just stay calm." I pulled her into my lap, my heart breaking and healing at the same time. "What do you think, Iris?" She rested her head on my chest, her voice muffled but clear. I think being strong means taking care of people. And you take care of me." In that moment, I knew Valentina's plan had failed. Her betrayal, born of cruelty and contempt, had created an opportunity for me to show my daughter what real masculinity looked like. Not the toxic, aggressive version represented by Marcus, but genuine, gentle strength. The kind that protects, nurtures, and sacrifices for others. The divorce was long and ugly. Valentina fought for full custody, painting me as an unfit father. But I had something she didn't. I had a daughter who could now see clearly. During the custody hearing, when the judge asked Iris where she wanted to live, she looked right at me and said, "With my daddy. He's the strongest person I know." Today, 2 years later, I have primary custody of Iris. Valentina has visitation rights, but she rarely uses them. I heard through mutual friends that her relationship with Marcus didn't last. He wasn't interested in being a father. Iris is 7 now, and she is incredible. She's kind, confident, and emotionally intelligent. She knows that real strength isn't about dominating others or never showing weakness. It's about facing your fears, treating people with respect, and standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. Sometimes late at night, I think about Valentina's words, "You're not a real man." In a way, she was right. I wasn't the kind of man she wanted. I wasn't domineering, aggressive, or emotionally unavailable. But I was exactly the kind of man my daughter needed. And in the end, that's what mattered most. The irony is that Valentina's betrayal became the greatest gift she ever gave me. It forced me to become the father I was always meant to be. It taught my daughter early in life how to recognize genuine character. She said I wasn't a real man, so I raised our daughter to know what one actually is.